Welcome everyone to another episode of Fate Grand Order 7 War Room. This is Shorgigel and I'll be discussing how your favorite servants would handle an actual Holy Grail War. Because you never know, maybe one day you're walking down the street and BAM! A Kaiju! For this video, I will be discussing none other than the alter ego of Craving, Kingprotea. My first extra class, and an alter ego on that. Kingprotea is a 5-star alter ego released in the rerun of Seraph's event. She doesn't actually have any contribution to the main plot of the event, instead being explained as something that was thrown away due to being too dangerous. Thrown out by who, you may ask? Why, BB, of course. And if even BB doesn't want to mess with her, then we already know some dangerous stuff out of Kingprotea. Now this is interesting, because Kingprotea has two variations to her personality. This actually applies also to Passionlip and Mount Lilith, having a variation from Fate Extra Triple C and MGO, her Triple C variation being the most dangerous. They all desire very innocent concepts, such as love and kinship, but their understanding on how to acquire it is completely alien. Kingprotea desires love, but her understanding on how to acquire that love is by, well, eating the person she wants love from. And you can still see reminiscence of this even in her Chaldean form, where she states that she feels full just by saying Fujimaru's name. So clearly this idea of acquiring love by eating the target of that love goes much deeper than just some misunderstanding. Now, the form that's more relevant to us is the Chaldean, because if you were to summon her, that would be her form. And how is her personality there? Well, the shift is dramatic. She'll no longer eat you on the sight, instead having acquired knowledge from Kiara on how to acquire love, which, as you already expect, makes her extremely touchy and clingy, constantly asking for any form of skinship. Let me warn you already that she has the mentality of a 14-year-old, and that you shouldn't get any weird ideas unless you don't mind having the FBI knocking on your door. FBI, open up! Since she now has a better grasp of love, she will be extremely obedient to whoever summons her, in hopes that they will grant her love. That said, she dislikes violence, so while she'll fight if you tell her to do it, there will be later ramifications regarding that. Which ramifications, you may ask? Well, Kingprotea has not completely abandoned the idea of eating to acquire love. If she feels that you're not loving her enough, she will eat you. To put it in simple words, Kingprotea is a servant with a high demand for attention, and if you fail to give her the attention she wants too many times, she'll eat you. Kingprotea's stats are bananas, because they are essentially infinite. Kingprotea is an engine that starts slow and then quickly gets out of control. I mean, just try and do her combat and oh my god. However, it's important to note that she's only infinite in the confinements of the digital world, and in the real world she is limited by both the Grail system, which cannot replicate her full power, and the world itself, which pressures her body by the laws of physics. While Kingprotea's minimum size would normally be 30 meters tall, in the real world her smallest size can be 5 meters, which, for perspective, that's like having two Hercules on top of each other. Yes, two Hercules on top of each other. You heard me right. You ain't hiding that. As for skills, Kingprotea has 9 skills in total, which you might think is absurd amounts. But it's actually within the norm for the Sacra 5 alter egos. And to be honest, while I could divide all of her skills into several different types, enough that it would just fill you the screen, there's a much easier way to explain how all her skills can be classified. They are all self-centered, in that all her skills are only interested in herself and no one else. Mad Enhancement, rank A+. This Mad Enhancement is a bit strange, as rather than Kingprotea being insane and having the stat boosts from Mad Enhancement, it's more that her perception of reality does not coincide with reality itself. Not only will she eat you in an attempt to acquire love, her perception of the world is completely reversed. Rather than seeing her as bigger than everyone else, she perceives that everyone is simply smaller than her. You might think that that's the same saying, but it actually reveals a lot about her perception. She perceives that her size and herself are normal, while everybody else who's weaker and smaller are the strange people. Independent action, rank B. Despite being only rank B, Kingprotea is completely independent of her master and can sustain herself indefinitely. Yes, even if she loses a master, she will remain in the Holy Grail War until she actually is killed. It's likely that the low rank has more to do with her submissive personality rather than the ability itself, as the ability is, as far as I'm concerned, pretty much an EX. Territory creation, rank EX. No, she cannot create a base or workshop. Instead, her core itself is considered territory. The higher rank representing her ability to grow out of control. Divine Core of the Goddess, rank A. Kingprotea has 3 goddesses inside her, making her essentially a goddess herself. She has complete protection from mental interferences, as well as innate high divinity, which granted bonus against unique defenses, as well as having a perfect body that does not change or age. Basically, she's immune to a whole bunch of stuff that is generally pretty good. High Servant, rank EX. Kingprotea has, again, 3 goddesses, and all of them represent the Earth Mother. As such, she herself has the essence of the Earth Mother inside her. Huge scale, rank C. In the digital world, this would be rank EX, but in the real world, it's been downgraded. Rather than an infinite growth, she has a set amount of growth that she can do every time she uses a skill. This growth is permanent until she uses her other skill. Infantile Regression, rank C. Using this skill will reset her growth to 0, reverting her to a smaller size, 5 meters, and getting a huge boost in mana. Monstrous Strength, rank EX. Kingprotea can further boost her strength to godlike levels. This rank even manages to surpass Tiamat's own monstrous strength. Yes, Kingprotea has a bigger monstrous strength than even the mother of monsters. And finally, her last skill, Area Crushing, rank A. It's an offensive skill in which Kingprotea can manipulate space around her, much like gravity, to then crush it with a fist. Despite how insane that might sound, Kingprotea has sealed this skill away when she learned how to properly acquire love. So treat this skill as if it doesn't exist, as she can no longer have access to it. As for Noble Phantom, while normally Kingprotea would not have a Noble Phantom, upon being summonable, she was granted a Noble Phantom. Airavata, King Size. Basically, Kingprotea can temporarily release the restraints put on her, allowing her to essentially become limitless once more as if she was in the digital world. During this short period, Kingprotea can easily one-shot the vast majority of enemies she could encounter. Overall, Kingprotea comes off as an unfair servant not through some clever trick or complicated mechanic, but by simply overwhelming the opponent with pure, limitless power that, if it's not enough, just grows until it can be enough. Servant Killer. Kingprotea can one-shot practically any servant she faces if she hits them. and her agility is good enough that she'll hit the vast majority of servants she encounters. In addition to that, she's also incredibly durable, and both her strength and endurance grow together as she increases in size, making her difficult to take out and difficult to stop her. Self-sustaining. You don't need to worry about being drained to death by Kingprotea. She's completely independent from her master, which is both good and bad depending on who you ask. For your average magus, this is incredibly bad, as one way to gain control over a servant is by being their lifeline. But for people like me or you the viewer, this is a godsend. Kingprotea doesn't need you at all, and as such her loyalty is by far much more genuine and sincere than most servants. Too big. She's just too big. While she can turn into spirit form, remember how she'll require a lot of affection to be satiated. That means that you'll need to find a place where she can actually fit. While she won't mind being all clutched together inside your house, if you can find a place where she can be a bit less restrained, that will go a long way. Maybe a warehouse, maybe even go camping. But that's still only half the problem, because you also have the issue of being too easy to spot. The moment she shows up, everyone will see her and her size, meaning that there's a high chance that you will have a lot of servants coming at you at the same time, as they will be afraid of your own servant. Weak versus assassination. Again, we come back to her size. Because of her size, if an assassin or another servant comes after you inside a building, Kingprotea will have immense difficulty to protect you, as her size will limit her movements without destroying the whole building. So again, maybe camping or being in a warehouse is your best option. Weak to anti-divine. Kingprotea has 3 goddesses inside her, making her divinity rank the highest. That means that servants with anti-divine skills, honorable phantoms like Karna and Gilgamesh, are natural counters to her. Affection or death. Kingprotea will demand love from the person who summons them, regardless of their age or gender. If you fail at providing the love she wants, she'll eat you. Worse yet, she can tell whether your love is genuine or interest-based. If you're only showing her love because she's strong and you want to win, she'll still eat you, as she doesn't consider your love to be genuine. So don't forget to give her plenty of headpats. Finally, we reach the more interesting part, because there's a few questions we have to answer before a strategy can be devised. Because Kingprotea is an extra class, there's 2 situations that could happen. Either she is entirely an extra servant, making the war an 8-servant war, or she's taking the place of another class in the war. If she's an extra servant, then this is the best possible position. You can remain hidden for pretty much the whole war, as no one will be looking for you or even expecting you. Then at the end, much like Gilgamesh did in Fate's Day Night, you just show up and take out the last servants. If there's 2 or 1, you can just go out. Kingprotea can probably take care of them. This also leaves you with plenty of time to satisfy Kingprotea, who not only will be happy that you want to stay low and not fight, but will be extra happy with all the attention that you can give her, since you don't need to be as worried about hiding. On the other hand, if you're taking the place of one of the other classes, then it's slightly more complicated. Hiding will be a lot harder, since Kingprotea's size makes her stand out too much. Any combat will also instantly alert everyone of Kingprotea, so staying low should remain a priority. However, in the case that you are found, dealing with the enemy as fast as possible should be a priority. Do not let anyone fully understand that Kingprotea can just keep on growing stronger. The less they know about Kingprotea, the better. Also watch out for specific servants such as Gilgamesh, Karna, and Nobunaga, as they are particularly nasty against Kingprotea. Because of how bad the matchup is for these 3, I'll give you some advice. Should the war you participate also have these servants? Normally, I wouldn't do these servants versus servants matchups, the reason being that in a Holy Grail War they're not that relevant. However, in the case of Kingprotea, because she is so powerful, there's actually not much to talk about the strategy, meaning that most of the strategy is going to come up to individual levels. It's going to be about matchups exactly like these. So what can you do if you do face either Gilgamesh, Karna, or Nobunaga? Against Gilgamesh, there's only one way to win. You need to catch him off guard, and Kingprotea has the perfect tool to do it. While Gilgamesh is engaged with an enemy, have Kingprotea at a distance, release her double phantom, growing to infinite as quickly as possible, and with Gilgamesh distracted and general attitude that no one can beat him, you can use the element of surprise plus the raw power of Kingprotea to squash him. Avoid direct confrontation at all costs. Enkidu plus Ea is a death sentence to Kingprotea, and she will not be able to deal with it. Against Karna, it can be a little more tricky, and will ultimately depend on Karna's master. Karna has ridiculous mana costs, and in general, even a good master will have trouble sustaining Karna in a prolonged fight. So direct confrontation is possible, however, you should avoid it until you're sure if Karna doesn't have a secondary mana supply. If you realize that he does have another mana supply, then finding it and severing the connection is mandatory. Once Karna is restricted by his mana cost, Kingprotea should be able to win against him by slowing down the fight. Prolong the fight as long as it takes, because Karna's high costs will ultimately lead to his master in a very dire situation. Against Nobunaga, well, this is by far Kingprotea's worst matchup. That's right, Nobunaga is a worse matchup than Gilgamesh and Karna. Nobunaga is specifically designed against Divines and Mystery, as not only does she have two anti-Divine and Mystery Noble Phantoms, she also has a skill that's also anti-Divine and anti-Mystery. And unlike Gilgamesh and Karna, she doesn't have any obvious weakness such as arrogance or high mana cost. Against Nobunaga, your best bet is to find an ally that is neither Divine nor Mystical, as against them, Nobunaga is not that special. You can also potentially try to snipe her by having Kingprotea throw a big boulder at her, although it's better to be a city-sized boulder to make sure she can't dodge it. Finally, don't forget to give her lots of attention to Kingprotea. While she might be intimidating at first, once you start interacting with her, her personality should melt most people into liking her. However, if you find her irritating and just don't like her, then sorry to tell you, but you're gonna get eaten, as not even a command seal is going to prevent her from killing you. If we were talking about the Triple C Kingprotea, then she would be an instant rank E, as no matter what you did, she would eat you on the spot the moment you summon her. However, since we're talking about her physicality and form, she's a lot easier to work with and ultimately is simply unfair. And this is most of alter egos. They are not fair servants. They're not even servants to begin with. They're only servants because of FGO. Otherwise, they would just be enemies that you have to defeat. Bosses. Unfair opponents. But since she is now a servant, then we have to consider her. While she's not as impressive as the other alter egos, her ability to grow out of control is too powerful to be ignored. As such, Kingprotea will be the first servant that I'll give the rank EX. If you summon her, there's very little that your enemies can do. The Holy Grail War would need to be stacked full of high tier servants, and even then they would need to work together to beat Kingprotea. With the exception of the free servants that I mentioned before, and of course some other exceptions because there's always more powerful servants out there. As such, rather than worrying about the war, your only worry should be in making Kingprotea happy. And that was Kingprotea, my first extra class, and one of the sacrifices. How interesting. Well, I mean, it was an interesting servant to work, to analyze on. It's actually quite fun to make this one. It's entertaining, to have powerful servants and at the same time servants that are very messed up in their head. So it was fun understanding what you could do to survive and the ramifications and all that. But ultimately, Kingprotea wasn't as, let's say, the most disturbing servant that I've dealt with. I mean, I've analyzed Gilda Ray, so that guy is more insane than her. But this is, of course, Kalia's Kingprotea, which is different from the Triple C, from the Fate Extra universe. Kingprotea was much more terrifying. I guess that would be one way to call her. Yes, terrifying, dangerous, too much to handle. The Kalia one is a good girl, a lot of head pats. Hopefully, I do actually get her so that she can join my sacrifice collection. Oh well. Anyway, that was Kingprotea. Next servant, hopefully this week or next week, because I actually don't know when this video is going to come out, since I'm going to release this video when Kingprotea comes out, and they haven't given any news as of the recording of this video. Anyways, leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. If you have any suggestions, leave them. I will look at them. If there's any servant that I'm particularly interested, I'll make a video about it. And hey, I'll even put your comment in the video so that everybody can know that you were the one who suggested it. Till next time, bye.